I'm Adam Hawkins. In a couple of days, I'll be 46 years old. I'm a father of three girls. Originally from Birmingham, moved to Leicestershire probably about 14 years ago. And ever since, I've been living in a market town called Melton Mowbray for the last 5, 6 years. So I've got a condition called AERD, which is aspirin exacerbated respiratory disease, which affects 3 areas of the body, which is you get sinus issues, you get a intolerance to any anti-inflammatory drug like ibuprofen. As well as that, I also for 2 years lost my sense of smell and taste. It affected it hugely. Well, AERD started back in January 2017. My sort of journey to find out what was causing the issues started with taking a simple ibuprofen before work. And then in reality, I should have really been in A&E on a nebulizer, which I was later told off by the GP, because my airways eventually closed down to a point where my eyes went bloodshot, struggling from the lack of oxygen, really, I was getting. Luckily, it did pass, and after 2.5 hours, but it was quite a scary moment when that first started, sort of January 2017. But then a few weeks later, I'd noticed that after any sort of exercise, which I was only doing 5-side, but I'd be wheezing, chest would close up, not to that severity, but it was noticeable that I was struggling with my breathing. And obviously that's the first sort of one of the first symptoms you can see with this condition, because it obviously it's a condition that commonly starts within the 3rd or 4th decade of your life to the 30s and 40s. Obviously, it's a condition that they're not fully aware of what causes it, but it's a chronic immune dysregulation condition. So it's also started with other bits where sinus buildup. I had a lot of sinus congestion, sometimes chest congestion, stuff like that. I even had urticaria, which is sort of hives and stuff like that flaring up. I noticed I'd also got a reaction with the asthma from alcohol. Simple beer or wine had set it off, not straight away, but later in the night I'd be wheezing again. But then I think some of the major things other than the asthma was the sense of smell and taste loss that I noticed later in that year. It was mainly due to burning the kids' food, really. Everyone's tea was burned. I tasted it. That seems fine to give them. Scrape out the burnt bits, you're fine. But they soon told me, I can tell you that it was burnt. And then that's when I ended up hitting the old herbs and spices and couldn't smell any of it. And that's when I'd already been seeing my GP for a bit about the asthma side, and it was all clear that it wasn't proper asthma. All the scans were fine, everything else. But then went to see him about my loss of smell and taste. He was a bit flummoxed because at the minute these are all separate symptoms that hadn't been put together. That is AERD, and it took probably, I think, around 18 months to get the full diagnosis of it, and a lot of trialing, nasal sprays, this, that, the other with the GP. And the GP was fabulous in the long run. He was always willing to try stuff. And when it got to the bit, he sent me to ENT and stuff like that. But they're not going to know everything. And in the end, went to ENT. They give me oral steroids to start off with, which cleared it up within 2 weeks. I thought it was the magic pill, thinking it was going to cure it and that was it, but it wasn't. At that point, all they told me was nasal polyps and stuff like that. And it wasn't until the second appointment in April 2018 and going through the whole story of the ibuprofen with the clinician then, that he then turned around to me saying, I think it's AERD or Sampter's triad, also known as. But he wasn't the most educated on the condition, which was the downside, because he wanted to keep on giving me oral steroids. And at that point, I'd already had 4 courses within near enough 6 months, which, if anything, I felt the asthma was getting worse. The smell was coming back for 2 weeks, but then going. And that's down to it reducing the nasal polyp size, which is all in your sinuses and everything. And that's why we don't have any connection with food, outside surroundings and stuff like that. And in the end, I had to sort of stamp my feet with him just to get, I ended up having a scan to see how bad the nasal polyps were, stuff like that. And then really started to investigate what the condition was, really. Luckily or unluckily for me, at the same point, I had a foot issue where in May 2018, I had to have a more or less bunion surgery from all my football and stuff and squashing my feet in these wonderful shoes. Honest, it was football boots. It wasn't the high heels at the weekend or anything like that. Honest, cross my heart. And literally, it's one of those where I had the time then after the surgery, even though I couldn't take any drugs after. It was just ice to more or less get the inflammation down. I had 3.5 months off, so I ended up spending time researching the condition. And still at that point, I didn't have full control of the asthma. I was literally having an inhaler morning, the brown inhaler in the morning, blue inhaler as a rescue inhaler. On my worst days, I was having up to 12 times a day. An average day was 3 or 4 times a day taking the blue inhaler. And how it affected me was that it was not knowing during that period of what was causing it. And in the end, it took the Santa Society in America, their information was more or less the main thing that got me to know how to control the condition. So at that point, I was taking nasal sprays, stuff like that, which is fine once you've got control of it. And in the end, it was a simple asthma drug that controlled the asthma. And I ended up going to my own GP saying, this is how it affects your prostaglandins and your leukotriene levels in your body. And he was fabulous. He says, it makes sense. Let's give it a go. And within 5 days, I was going from, on worst days, up to 12 times with the inhaler, up to maybe 12 times in a year. So that's the sort of journey I got to having control of the condition. The major thing with smell and taste is that with AERD and the nasal polyps blocking all your sinuses, you have it's a major area that connects your brain to emotions and memories and stuff like that. And the major issues I had was, number one, I always loved cooking, trying new stuff and everything else. And because I lost that smell and taste, I lost enjoyment. I wasn't really bothered by food. I probably was undernourished. At the point I was trying to lose weight, because at that point the foot issue and stuff like that, but I lost a lot of weight once I knew about my smell and taste loss. My sort of appetite was literally non-existent, because I just saw food as just a fuel, but no connection or enjoyment with it. Knowing that you couldn't tell a banana milkshake to a sort of kale milkshake and stuff like that was near enough the same thing. So what I also found was that there's funny bits, like the kids would always try and get away with not cleaning their teeth and stuff like that, mainly because they know I couldn't smell it on their breath. So it ended up a lot of time being brush sort of thing and physically watching them. But it was mainly, I had such a disconnection from the outside world because I couldn't call on memories or emotions and stuff like that. I just felt in my own little bubble, disconnected from everyone else because of it. And I mean, that with the asthma, it just affected my life so badly. I think it was only a short period where I had depression for probably 6 to 8 weeks. And at one point, I decided I've got to turn this negative into a positive. And that's why I ended up going, well, what can I do to affect whatever I've got? And I ended up deciding that I'd change my nutrition, eat healthy. If I can't taste the food, I might as well make sure I'm eating my fruit and veg and everything else, which was an issue. I was very much anti-fruit and veg, whereas now that's the main part of my diet, really. I'm not vegetarian, but there's a huge amount of fruit and veg, and what goes into my body is a major part of what I do, how I keep control of the condition, because of it being a sort of an immune dysregulation. It's sort of an inflammatory condition as well. So it's literally trying to do the best you can and reduce the inflammation, which also helps with stopping the nasal polyps from coming back. Well, the journey for me started when I started running about 2018 December. I had a puncture. I had to go and pick the kids up. I was sort of a mile and a half away from school. I had the school pickup. Don't want to be that parent that's late. So I ended up, there's nothing for it. I've got to run down. So ran down, was literally like a lunatic running down the road. And literally, but the positive thing was that I got sinus release. And then from there, I just started taking up running because it helped my condition. It also was the first time I got my smell and taste back, only for short, brief periods while I was running. About 6 weeks later, I had some smell and taste back for about an hour, a half hour during the run and half hour after. And then I started progressing my running till about, I think it was about April 2019, did my first half marathon, stuff like that. Yeah, I was out on a long run and literally I was just thinking about my running, my condition, AERD, and then thinking, we need to get awareness of my condition, but as well as the smell and taste, because these are all invisible conditions that you can't tell someone's got. And literally, as well as that, it was just the lack of knowledge about it. Obviously, I was never given a pamphlet on it. I had to do my own research. I got control of it through an outside source without it being through the NHS or anything else. And it needed to change. We needed to get people the help they need and signposting as quick as we could, so people didn't have to go through the standard of living. I felt I was so low. I felt so low for a period of it that I thought I need to do something, need to get the awareness, especially in the UK. And during my I investigated the condition and I found only one piece of information in the UK on the condition, and that was through the Fifth Sense website. And that was a story about someone that had got the condition. Wasn't a huge piece, but it was something. And that's what then got me back. What charity do I pick? And Smell and Taste seemed to be the right one. And because it was a major part of my life with cooking and stuff like that, that I wanted to link with a charity that needed more more coverage, and they're a small charity that's growing exponentially at the minute, and literally it's an amazing charity. And that's when I emailed Duncan about chatting about it, about my story, what I want to do and stuff like that. And we chatted over the phone for a good hour, and then we decided to put a story together on how I found out about it. And even though that same year I had sinus surgery that to more or less clear all my nasal polyps, I still decided 12 weeks after that to run my first marathon for 5th Sense. It all went fine. Within 6 weeks after the surgery of getting rid of all the nasal polyps, I could smell and taste again, which I couldn't. I'm the lucky one. Even though the condition, you have got that sort of looming over you a little, that it's about a matter of trying to reduce the growth of those coming back. There's a good chance I'll lose my sense of smell and taste again, but I'm one of the lucky ones to get it back, and can also say how my sort of hunger levels and enjoyment of food had come back, and trying new foods. It was just second to none. Even though I'm a rural postie, and the first bit of smell I got back was a farmyard, so it wasn't. Mm-hmm. It was good in one respect, but bad in another. So I then ran my first. I put together in the August a story on this journey, and we published it with links to the Santa Society, so people can get the right information, but also the 5th Sense have all the signposting to get the best possible ENT care as well. Well, since 2019 September, I did my first challenge, which was the Rutland Marathon for AERD Awareness Day, which was yesterday. I did a half marathon yesterday, PB by the way. And literally from there, it was always getting the next level. I wanted to test myself, because even though I've got the condition, I want to prove that you can be as top as you can. I'm trying to strive to get into that top 5 to 1%, and push my boundaries every time. So I then, after the marathon, decided, well, marathon's not enough. So I decided to take on an ultra marathon. And I thought, well, let's not over egg it. So I did a 36-mile ultra marathon across trails and about 12 miles of beach running across the Northumberland coast in February of obviously 2020, luckily just before lockdown and COVID happened, and managed that, even though it didn't go quite to plan, because I had a cold 2 weeks before. With my condition, you get cold hit the chest, and then I had to go on to oral steroids again, so I had to back off training. But I completed it in 6 hours, 32 minutes of running continuously. But I did that, and it was an amazing experience again. And I think I then kept on pushing. Even with COVID, I decided I needed to do something, even though we couldn't have races and stuff like that. So I dreamt up, at that point, I'd sort of got into fitness even more, started a bit of CrossFit, and then we decided to do 2 Navy SEAL challenges. One being David Goggins, which is I'm a big proponent of him. That he's a great character, David Goggins. His book is amazing about mental fortitude and everything else. But he has a challenge where you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And I did that while working on the Saturday as well, but I added a bit more, so I wanted to do 2 marathons in total. So I did 4.44 miles every 4 hours, 48 hours. But it took more sleep deprivation than anything. And dealing with that, I think I got about 4 hours worth of sleep, but managed, I think, 56 miles in 48 hours. And then from there, I did a Murph challenge, which is a CrossFit hero workout, which was with a weighted vest. And that was a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and a mile run. And me being me, it wasn't just to complete it. I wanted to go sub 45 minutes. I ended up doing it in 38 minutes, something 26, I think. I think it's on YouTube. If you put 5th Sense Murph in, it's on there. My torture and pain is all over my face because it was a tough one. It's an all-out one. It's not like some of them where it's endurance, slow. Just getting through it, it was just all guns blazing sort of thing. And then this year we were back to races again. And this year I've sort of changed tact. So I've done a half Ironman, being my first triathlon at Hawkins Hall in July 4th, just gone. And I did that in 5 hours 47. Even though I wanted to give in, 5 minutes into that swim, I was near enough drowning, taking in so much water. I wanted to give in, but then got through that and loved every minute of it. And then since then, I've done one Spartan race, Spartan Super. That is pretty tough, pretty brutal. I took it for granted, and I will revisit this sport of Spartan races because I've got unfinished business with it, to say the least. But it did break me. I did do it, but not to the level I want to. Well, the only last few things I want to talk about, one is my upcoming challenge, which is I've done 3 this year, the final one being the next step up on Ultra, which is Ultra Trail. I'm doing the Brecon Beacons November 13th, which is a 50-mile ultra marathon, because one of the ultimate goals over the coming years for me is to try and get into UTMB, which you have to accrue points and prove yourself on these distances. So I'm doing a 50-mile ultra through, hopefully in wonderful weather in November, but it's anyone's guess. And there will be a link to donate if you want. It's through Sponsor Me. And if you search my name, Adam Hawkins, you can have a look at that. But it's mainly to promote that AERD is a condition that does affect your smell and taste. It does reduce your standard of living quite a bit, but there is ways to control it. There is support out there through charities like the 5th Sense, great signposting to where to get the right help, the right support, as well as links to the SAMTA Society that were a great place to get all the information of the latest research, what they're doing, as in researching in America, what you can do to control the condition. And these 2 places are perfect for that. Because in the end, AERD is a condition that 7 to 10%, they reckon, of asthmatics have actually got this condition. And if you've got severe asthma, the likelihood it's 15% of people have got it. And then if you go to anyone that's got nasal polyps and severe asthma, you're probably literally 1 in 4 chance you've got it. But it's just getting people to also realize that smell and taste is important. You can't tell by looking at people that they've got a smell or taste disorder. And it's such an invisible it's an awful condition because it ends up disconnecting you from your family and the outside world. So it's an area where I feel strongly that we need to promote the importance and the research that's needed to get smell and taste understood, and just help some of these people that have got conditions that smell and taste is not part of their life.